The language. They created a language. This thing, in Israel they speak Hebrew. Hebrew is not the natural language of the Jewish people. For thousands of years we have not spoken Hebrew. Even during the days of the Second Temple, Jews did not speak Hebrew, they spoke Aramaic. You know the story, do you ever see the clip on YouTube between Netanyahu and the Pope? No, I'm not joking. It's not like Netanyahu and the Pope walk into a bar. It's not a joke. Go into YouTube and punch in Netanyahu Pope. What you'll get is a little clip. The Pope a couple of years ago came to visit Israel, and he sits down with Netanyahu, and Netanyahu's telling him in Hebrew, he's bragging to him about Israel. He says, this is the place where Jesus lived, and he spoke Hebrew. So the Pope says, no, Aramaic. And Netanyahu says, yes, but he understood Hebrew. Could be he did, but that's not the language that they spoke. The Jewish nationalist movement they call Zionism developed at a time and in places where anti-Semitism was not at its strongest. In many ways, it was at its weakest. I'm going to add some arguments from Judaism to show that Zionism was much different than response to anti-Semitism. Number one, if all Zionism was a response to anti-Semitism to find a safe place, why Israel? Why Palestine? Why the Middle East? There was a Uganda suggestion. There were other suggestions. If all you're looking for is a safe place for Jews to go, why insist on Israel? And they did insist on Israel. Why? Go take an island somewhere. Go take Uganda. It's as safe as anywhere else. It would be much safer than Israel, that's for sure. Yet they didn't. Another thing, the language. They created a language. This thing, in Israel they speak Hebrew. There were Zionists that decided that the Jews should create a language, Hebrew. And modern Hebrew is very different than biblical Hebrew. I got to tell you, I have a hard time understanding modern Hebrew. I really do. I understand biblical Hebrew perfectly. But modern Hebrew is very hard for me to understand because it's much different. But they created this language for the Jews to speak. Why? Do you know how much effort went into that? Do you know how difficult it is to teach people a new language? Jews came from Russia, they came from Poland, came from Germany to Israel. Why couldn't, it happens to be Theodor Herzl, in his book, The Jewish State, had no intention of the Jews in Israel speaking Hebrew. They don't speak Swiss or German or some such language. This was another idea from the Zionists. Why? If all you're looking for is a safe place, a haven, why create a language? Why in what they called the ancient homeland and create a language? There was much more to Zionism, clearly, than merely finding a safe place for the Jews. Now, we're going to speak a little about Judaism now, and we're going to take you back in time about 1,000 years. Before 1,000 years, we could do 500 years too, even 400 years. 350, things get a little murky. Once the Enlightenment came and Judaism was affected by outside influences. We're going to take you back 500, 1,000 years, and we're going to describe the basics of Judaic thought. The first question is, what is a Jew? Now, if you want to know the definition of a word, usually go to the dictionary. It's not going to help you over here very much. I have in front of me two dictionary definitions of Jew, one from the Cambridge Dictionary and one from Oxford English Dictionary. According to Cambridge Dictionary, quote, a person whose religion is Judaism, or, he said, our nation is only a nation, our people are only a people because of our religion, because of our Torah. That's it. When Ruth the Moabites converted, she told Naomi, my people are your people are my people, and your God is my God. Our tradition tells us that when she said, your people are my people, it meant, your commandments, your Torah is my Torah. The Jewish people, 1,000 years ago, up until recent times, identified as Jews for only one reason, because of a religion. The Jews were a religious community. If you did not practice the religion, it did not make any sense to call yourself a Jew. There were no such thing. If you didn't practice the religion, people converted to other religions. But there was no such thing, with a few quirky exceptions. Perhaps Benedict Spinoza was one of them, depends who you ask. But with a few perhaps quirky, Zionism was not a response to anti-Semitism, it was a response to Judaism. It was a movement to normalize the Jews. It was a social engineering project to take the Jews and change them from people that I described, like Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan and like Rabbi Soloveitchik, to people like Benjamin Netanyahu and Ariel Sharon, normal people, people who love strength, people who love gold medals, Nobel Prizes. Jews, you have an opportunity finally to be normal. The goal was transformation. I'm going to put this over here. Transformation. Okay? Transformation. That was the Zionist goal, to transform the Jews into normal people. Zionism is not merely... So you're telling me that it's worth having a state of Israel and paying the price in Jewish blood, in wars and anti-Semitism, as an insurance policy, a premium for an insurance policy, in case one day there's a Holocaust and you need a place to go, and Israel will let you in, and Israel will be a safe place. Tell me at what point does this premium for this insurance policy get too expensive? How many Jews should die so that you should have, if there is no Holocaust, then all this was for nothing, right? Tell me, how many Jews do you think is worth it? 1 million? 6 million? 10 million? At what point do you say this is too expensive? And he says, well, you know what? All of us, we should all go down fighting. Go down fighting. You know what Mr. Alsop, the journalist for Newsweek, told Golda Meir? That she has a Masada complex. You know the story of Masada. Masada means nothing to the Jewish people until the Zionists made it into. The Zionists considered all Jews that didn't join their movement traitors also, because that's Jews are a nation. Step one: nationalize the Jewish people, make them think like they're a nation. We're a nationality. One of the advantages of them for becoming a nation is that Peretz Smolenskin said, "You're not going to have to be religious anymore to be a Jew." What's a loyal Jew now? Somebody loyal to the country, speaks the Hebrew language, fights in the Jewish army. Forget about religion. You see, here's what Zionism was doing. It was taking a religion, a religious community, and transforming it into a national political one. The Holy Land is not a holy land anymore, now it's a national homeland. The language is not a holy language, now it's a national language. The second thing Zionism did in order to transform the Jews. Yosef Chaim Brenner said, we want the Gentile culture in our own streets, in our own land, in our own people. And that which we would do if we were assimilated with them, we want to do amongst ourselves in our own way. Most of all, we want to be vital and alive without the yoke of Torah and religion, and without the lies and beliefs of religion. Jacob Klatskin explained the goal of Zionism was to deny any conception of Jewish identity based on spiritual criteria. The goal of Zionism was to dismantle Judaism and to create a new Jewish people. Now you may ask, why didn't they just convert? Why didn't they just assimilate? Why do they need any of this? The answer is they tried. It didn't work. Zionism was plan B. There were many assimilated Jews. Theodor Herzl, by the way, in his diary, describes an idea. Before Zionism, he had to straighten out the Jews, convert them all to Christianity. I'm not joking. He had great Christianly, you know the old joke, what's the difference? So here was the Zionist plan. We're going to create a new people. Now what type of people? Here is fact one about Zionism. Zionism was different than all the other religio-political movements, different than other religions, in that other religions, other political movements, have various ideas of what they want people to be, what they think the world should be. The communists think that communism will save the world, the Christians believe in the Christian religion. Zionists didn't care what they would be. The goal of Zionism was to make sure what they are no longer being, Jews. What was the best way? The question the Zionists had to deal with was what the best way to dismantle Judaism. Vladimir Jabotinsky made a eulogy on Theodor Herzl. Listen to what he writes. To imagine what a true Hebrew is, Hebrew meaning Zionists, that's what they call themselves, to picture his image in our minds. We have no example from which to draw. You can't use any model to know what a real Zionist will be. Instead, we have to use a method of, and here he used the rabbinical expression, ipcha mistavra, meaning learn something from its opposite. We take as our starting point a Yid of today and try to imagine in our minds his exact opposite. That's a Zionist. A Zionist doesn't have any particular characteristics, but we do know he's the exact opposite of a Jew. Let us erase from that picture all the personality traits that are so typical of a Yid and insert into that picture all the desirable traits whose absence is so typical in the Yid. Because a Yid is ugly, sickly, and lacks handsomeness, we will endow the ideal image of the Hebrew with masculine beauty, stature, massive shoulders, vigorous movements, bright colors, and different shades of color. The Yid is frightened and downtrodden. And by the way, just keep a little attention on Netanyahu's statements. Slowly, they're going to become understandable. The Yid is frightened and downtrodden. The Hebrew ought to be proud and independent. The Yid is disgusting to all. The Hebrew should charm all. The Yid accepted submission, and the Hebrew will learn how to command. The Yid likes to hide with bated breath from the eyes of strangers. The Hebrew, with brazenness and greatness, will march ahead to the entire world, look them straight in their eyes, and hoist before them the banner, I am a Zionist. At the Second Zionist Congress held in Basel in 1898, Max Nodot introduced the idea of muscle Judaism. A short description from Wikipedia captures the idea pretty well. Quote, the characteristics of the muscular Jews are the exact opposite, an antithesis of the diaspora Jew. Nodot saw the promotion of muscular athletic Jews as a counterpoint to such depictions of Jews as a weak people. In addition, the muscle Jew is the opposite of the rabbinic or